Red Bull is being widely regarded as the team to beat after the Formula One pre-season test at Sakhir, with the RB19 appearing to be incredibly reliable and quick on both short and long runs. But while the pace of the Red Bull appeared to be bad news for Ferrari, which is aiming to compete for World Championship glory this year, team principal Fred Vasseur seems far concerned with what he's seen in running so far. He is adamant that Ferrari spent most of its time during the test evaluating setups rather than trying to set fast times and appear in the headlines. Vasseur also thinks that testing times can be particularly misleading in Bahrain, as the competitive order will likely be very different when competition actually begins due to the race weekend's later start time compared to testing. Overall, I think that we can be happy with the test that we did, Vasseur told the media. I think overall the car looks okay performance-wise, but we don't know about the level of fuel of other cars. The most important was to scan every kind of setting on the car, because you know that the feature of today is completely different to the picture of next week. I don't remember who did the fastest lap time last year in Bahrain, but he was not on pole position for the race, and that was the same 2 years ago. Despite the fact that some of Ferrari's race run attempts did not look very competitive, Vasseur has claimed that there were instances in which the team had tried various setups that were obviously not correct. He is still adamant that Ferrari got what it wanted out of the test, and that worrying too much about what Red Bull was doing would only serve to damage its own chances. But the drivers appear to be a little more dubious. Although Charles Leclerc believed that efforts in increasing aerodynamic efficiency had paid off by increasing straight line speed, he also sensed that there had been consequences with the car not being so strong in the corners. He also said the team hasn't yet found a sweet spot for their car setup, and he hopes they will by the time the grid hits the track for qualifying in Bahrain. I think our car has changed a little bit of characteristic this year. I expect us to be a bit quicker in the straights, maybe struggling a bit more in the corners, Leclerc explained. I can say that we are still working quite a bit on trying to find the sweet spot on the car in terms of setup, so there's some margin on that still, that we haven't found the sweet spot yet. As the teams adjust to a slightly raised minimum ride height, slightly heavier tyres and changes to the technical regulations, Leclerc has also used this opportunity to test out various driving techniques while operating the SF23. And after much trial and error, the Monegasque driver thinks he has discovered the best method for moving his car around Bahrain. But he knows that the work is not yet finished in the Scuderia garage. The Scuderia covered the third most number of laps, 416, during the 3-day pre-season test that saw very few issues, although there were 1 or 2 DRS glitches. Overall, however, it appeared to be a good pre-season test for a team hoping to challenge Red Bull after falling short the previous year. But if one digs a little deeper, it appears the SF23 may still suffer from the same issue that plagued its predecessor, eating tyres. It's good for a couple of laps, but race pace-wise, Ferrari have got a mountain to climb, said F1 presenter Buxton. While Ferrari have had seemingly a good test and they have a fast car, there are rumours coming from the Scarlet team that they are actually in a bit of trouble. Because while the car is super reliable, and we've seen that on track, and as you said, super fast, its deg is miserable. The tyres are just jumping off a cliff. However, Fred Vasseur has downplayed the tyre efficiency concerns. When asked about Ferrari's high degradation, he told Motorsport Italia, "I know you've analysed all the stints, but you'll also have seen that we completed a lot of stages trying different things, and some worked well right away, others less so. I'm quite happy with what we've done in these 3 days. The most important thing in winter testing is being able to put in the kilometres, because when for some reason you don't succeed, it's a disaster." Red Bull may have set the pace, with Sergio Perez finishing 0.3 seconds ahead of Lewis Hamilton on the final day of testing. But the fastest times are only a tip of the iceberg, especially considering that Alfa Romeo came in third. According to many in the paddock, while Red Bull's RB19 is the fastest car over a single lap, Ferrari's SF23 is hot on its heels. Adding to that, the team that may be second fastest over long runs may not be Ferrari or even Mercedes, but actually Aston Martin. The Silverstone's team, AMR23, is the second or third fastest car over a race distance depending on who is interpreting the results. But that is all it is, interpretations, as no one knows the other team's fuel loads or engine modes on any given lap. The same sentiment holds true for Red Bull's Helmut Marko, who cautioned against drawing any firm conclusions from the pre-season pre-season testing results. Nevertheless, he seems pretty confident. Times, as we know in testing, are relative, Marco said. We don't know what the competition was like on fuel, so if they were heavier than us, then our time is relative. But it has been shown that we are reliable, that we are fast at the front. Above all that, what makes us very optimistic is that both of Perez's and Max's long runs were clearly at least faster than those of the competition. However subjective the testing results may be, there are some glaring differences between the Ferrari and Red Bull vehicles. Visually, the RB19 is an evolution of last year's car. If Red Bull had the weight issue that everyone, including the team itself, claimed it did last year, then reaching the weight limit and being able to adjust the weight distribution to work with the new, stronger front tyres will undoubtedly result in a quicker package this time around. The team would have cried out for that new, stronger front tyre last year when it was attempting to address the innate tyre understeer that most other teams also experienced. And the change will be of great benefit to Max Verstappen, especially as the Dutchman famously loves a more lively car. The Ferrari car is again, like the Red Bull, developed from the same DNA as last year's, but with a push to reduce drag even if that costs a little in the corners. There is still a negligible amount of low-velocity porpoising in the SF23. That's fine, because it demonstrates that they are pushing the car's design limitations to their absolute limit. However, they must take care to understand the trigger switch and know how to disable it if necessary. Over the bumps and curbs, it doesn't look as stable as the Red Bull. Ferrari may be running it a bit stiff to minimize that porpoising, and while at some circuits that will be fine, at other bumpier circuits it could prove problematic. The two Ferrari drivers also appeared to be much more evenly matched than their Red Bull counterparts, suggesting that Carlos Sainz has now established a firm foothold at Maranello. Sergio Perez, on the other hand, appeared to be his usual self, as he was slow to get grips with the RB19 straight away. Of course, while he initially made a few mistakes, locking up occasionally and running wide at times, he ultimately topped the test times. But as we have already mentioned, Red Bull may not be the only competitor for Ferrari, with Aston Martin up there in terms of the pace they've shown so far. When the team changed to its B-Spec car midway through 2022, it followed the family resemblance of the Red Bull, and their new car takes that even further. Right or wrong, it's a philosophy for success. It's not surprising that this is the course it has taken, given the significant increase in staff and the addition of some of the best talent from other elite teams like Red Bull and Mercedes. Aston Martin's position among the top 3 teams heading into Bahrain may come as a surprise to some, but the team is eager to advance, and we all know Lawrence Stroll isn't exactly a patient person. As long as he sees progress, he will dig deep into his pockets. Will it win races this year? On an equal footing, probably not, but with a following wind, Fernando Alonso, who could be a bit of an animal on race day, and a team that has a history of pulling off unexpected victories, it's not impossible. Felipe Drugovich performed admirably, considering he was just thrown into the fire. He carried out his duties as a test and reserve driver should, making no mistakes in the process. Aston Martin did, however, miss its yardstick in Lance Stroll. As Alonso noted, at the very least, Lance would have been able to describe the new car's inherent sensations because he would have a wealth of first-hand knowledge from the previous year to contrast. Of course, there are still concerns about whether Aston Martin will be able to maintain the same level of performance throughout the entire season, and if so, how many points they will be able to steal from Red Bull and Ferrari. So what do you think about the top 3 as we approach the Bahrain Grand Prix this weekend? Will Ferrari be able to capitalize on their successful pre-season test to challenge Red Bull for real this time? We would love to hear from you in the comments section below. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel, and don't forget to click the bell button to be notified of future videos.